Okay, picture this for a moment. It's April 22nd, 2025. You find yourself in the Bizaran Valley near Pahalgam. It's genuinely stunning. They actually call it mini Switzerland.
It really is breathtaking.
Yeah, imagine these incredible green meadows, the Litter River flowing through. You've got these huge pine forests all around, and then, snow-capped mountains in the distance. Just postcard perfect, really.
An idyllic scene.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that day, that amazing sense of peace was just completely destroyed by something truly awful.
Yeah, what unfolded was a horrific terrorist attack. Gunfire just erupted in that beautiful valley, and suddenly 26 people were killed.
26.
25 Indian tourists and one Nepali citizen. It was just brutal, and it instantly became India's deadliest terror attack since the Mumbai attacks back in 2008, and
Yeah.
a terrible benchmark.
And the reaction, it was immediate, wasn't it? Very powerful. India really didn't mince words, especially internationally.
No, they didn't.
At the UN, I mean, they straight up called Pakistan a rogue state.
Right.
This wasn't just some local incident. It went global right away, sparked huge international attention.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive today, we've really gone through the news reports, the UN proceedings, everything surrounding the attack and its immediate consequences.
Right.
Our aim here is to really unpack what happened, look at the global response, and maybe understand some of the deeper tensions this whole tragedy brought to the surface.
We want to lay it out clearly, keep you engaged, focus on the crucial stuff without getting bogged down. Highlight what really matters, and maybe some surprising angles, too.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's dig into the attack itself first. What do we know about how it happened? This wasn't like a random act.
No, definitely not. Reports indicate 5 militants armed. And not just with anything. They had M4 carbines, AK-47s, serious military-grade weapons.
Which suggests planning, right,
Yeah.
and maybe training.
Precisely. It points to a level of organization and, well, lethal intent, not something you typically associate with a purely spontaneous local group.
And some of the details from eyewitnesses are just chilling. The idea that they separated people.
Yes, reports suggest they separated men from women and children, then questioned the men about their religion before opening fire.
Targeting specific people.
It seems so. Targeting civilians, mostly Hindu tourists who are visiting from all over India. It really speaks to the viciousness of the attack.
Just awful. And beyond the 26 who died, more than 20 were injured. Their lives completely changed in an instant.
And initially, a group calling itself the Resistance Front, the TRF, they claim they did it.
The TRF, they have links to Lashkar-e-Taiba, don't they?
That's the widely understood connection, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Lashkar-e-Taiba being, of course, a UN-designated terrorist group. And the TRF's stated reason. They were targeting outsiders who they claimed were settling in Kashmir.
But then things got a bit strange, didn't they?
They did. Because just 4 days later, the TRF suddenly retracted their claim. They tried to walk it back.
Which immediately sounds suspicious.
Very. Especially to the Indian government. They cited digital intelligence, suggesting the attackers might have had support from safe houses located in Muzaffarabad and Karachi in Pakistan.
So India wasn't buying the retraction at all.
Not in the slightest. They saw it as perhaps an attempt at plausible deniability by potential state sponsors. It just added another layer of complexity and suspicion, really.
Okay, so that leads us straight into how India responded. And as you said, it was fast and multi-pronged.
Absolutely. On the ground in Jammu and Kashmir, a major security clampdown began almost immediately,
Yeah, reports mentioned massive crackdowns, something like over 60 raids.
at least. And hundreds of arrests, detaining people they described as overground workers.
Right, those are the people who provide support logistics, maybe intelligence, but aren't directly involved in the violence itself.
Exactly, a crucial support network for militant groups.
And they put out bounties too, didn't they?
Yes. The J&K police offered a pretty substantial reward, 60 lakh rupees, for information on 3 main suspects. One local, Adil Hussain Tokar, and 2 others believed to be Pakistani nationals, Ali Bai, or Talapai, and Hashim Musa, also known as Zuliman.
And the investigation itself was quickly escalated.
It was. India's National Investigation Agency, the NIA, took charge. Their focus, understandably, was on piecing together eyewitness accounts, tracking entry and exit routes, the whole forensic investigation side of things.
But the response went way beyond just internal security, right? Diplomatically, things moved very quickly, too.
Oh, absolutely. Prime Minister Modi himself made a very public, very strong vow to punish the perpetrators, saying they'd face consequences beyond imagination.
Strong words.
And actions followed. India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty.
Wow, that's huge. That treaty's been around since 1960.
Exactly. Governs water sharing from the Indus River system. Suspending it is a major diplomatic and potentially economic signal. They also closed the Atari border crossing.
A key link.
Revoked visas for most Pakistani nationals, although with some exceptions for like long-term residents or medical cases. And they expelled Pakistani diplomats.
So, a full court press, diplomatically speaking.
Definitely. And the language used by officials was unambiguous.
Like Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri.
Yes, his statement calling it a cross-border assault and labeling Pakistan a rogue state in terminal decline. I mean, that's incredibly blunt language on the international stage.
Pretty strong stuff, yeah. Leaves no doubt about India's position.
None at all. And this all kind of culminated in a major confrontation at the UN.
Ah, yes, the Votan launch event, April 28th.
Right, the launch of the Victims of Terrorism Association Network.
Yeah.
It turned into a venue for a very direct, very heated exchange.
India's ambassador, Yojana Patel, she really went after the Pakistani delegate, didn't she?
She delivered what's been described as a blistering response. It wasn't your usual diplomatic back and forth. It felt much more direct.
And she used something quite specific, right? Something Pakistan's own defense minister had said.
That was the core of it. She directly quoted Pakistan's defense minister, Khawaja Asif, from an interview he gave to Sky News.
What did he say again? It was quite something.
It was remarkably candid. He essentially admitted Pakistan had supported terror groups for decades, acting, as he put it, on behalf of the U.S. and the West.
His exact words were something like, "We've been doing this dirty work for the United States for about 3 decades, and the West, including Britain."
Precisely. And Ambassador Patel used that exact admission, those words from Pakistan's own government, to label Pakistan a rogue state fueling global terrorism.
Wow. Using their own minister's words against them at the UN, that's audacious.
It was certainly a powerful moment. Reports suggest the Pakistani delegation tried to interrupt, but she pressed on, highlighting the stark contradiction.
And she accused them of misusing the UN platform, too.
Yes, for spreading propaganda and making, in her words, baseless allegations against India. It really laid bare the animosity.
So beyond this UN clash, the international reaction was pretty widespread, wasn't it? Lots of condemnation.
Overwhelmingly so. Leaders from all over the world expressed condemnation and solidarity with India. It showed a clear, global stance against this kind of violence.
Who are some of the key voices? I remember seeing President Trump mentioned it.
Yes, U.S. President Trump called it a reminder of constant threats. FBI Director Kash Patel also pledged support. We heard from Putin in Russia, Macron in France, Starmer in the UK, Meloni in Italy, Netanyahu in Israel, all condemning the attack.
Even Iran's president reached out.
President Pezeshkian, yes, called PM Modi directly, condemning the inhumane act and stressing the need for regional cooperation against terror.
That's significant.
It is. And it wasn't just individual countries. The UN Security Council itself issued a statement.
A unified one. That's not always easy to achieve.
No, it's quite rare. But they strongly condemned the attack and crucially demanded accountability for everyone involved, perpetrators, organizers, financiers, and any state sponsors.
And the UN Secretary General.
Guterres also condemned it and specifically called for restraint from both India and Pakistan. He was following it closely.
We also saw condolences from neighbors, right? Afghanistan, Bangladesh.
Bhutan, Sri Lanka, too. A real sense of regional solidarity against terrorism.
Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, he did condemn the attack itself.
He did issue a condemnation, yes. But, and it's a big but, he immediately followed it by denying any Pakistani involvement whatsoever.
Right.
And he called for a credible investigation. So it was a condemnation paired with a firm denial. Sets up that conflicting narrative we see so often.
So Pakistan's official line was denial. What else did they say? Did they offer any alternative explanation?
Well, Defense Minister Khawaja Asif, despite his earlier Sky News comments, tried to suggest it was homegrown. He attempted to link it to internal issues within India, mentioning Nagaland, Chhattisgarh, Manipur.
Really? After the TRF claim?
Yes. And he even floated the idea of a false flag operation implying India might have staged it.
That's a serious accusation. Was there anything at all suggesting that?
Honestly, based on the sources we've reviewed, that theory was widely dismissed internationally. The TRF's initial claim, even retracted, plus the intelligence India cited, made the false flag idea seem, well, pretty implausible to most observers.
And Pakistan reacted strongly to India suspending the Indus Waters Treaty.
Very strongly. Their National Security Committee called it an act of war, and warned they'd take firm reciprocal measures. That really raised the stakes.
And did they take reciprocal measures?
They did. Mirroring India's actions, they closed their airspace to Indian flights, suspended visas for Indians, and expelled Indian diplomats.
So tit for tat diplomatically.
Pretty much. And Asif also talked about an imminent incursion threat from India, claimed they'd reinforced troops. Meanwhile, reports started coming in about nightly small arms fire along the line of control.
A definite escalation on the ground, too, then.
Seems so. India said its forces were responding, but in a measured way. Still, it paints a picture of rapidly deteriorating relations, all stemming from that horrific attack in Pahalgam.
It's so easy to get lost in the politics and diplomacy, but we absolutely have to remember the human cost here. These weren't just numbers.
No, absolutely not. There were individuals, families shattered. The report shared some devastating stories.
Like Dinesh Marania celebrating his anniversary.
Yes, from Raipur. Just heartbreaking. And Sushil Nathaniel from Indore. On a family trip, his daughter Akanksha was injured. Prashant Sapathy from Odisha.
And the group from Gujarat.
Shalish Kalathia, Yadish Parmar, and his young son Smit. All gone. An Indian Air Force officer from Arunachal Pradesh, 2 tourists from Karnataka, each one a terrible loss.
And the stories from survivors. Just unimaginable.
Truly harrowing. One account mentioned the terrorists making hateful comments about Prime Minister Modi, demanding a father recite Islamic verses before shooting him.
Yeah.
The sheer terror of it.
But even amidst all that horror, there were signs of resilience, weren't there?
There were. We saw things like candlelight marches in Hyderabad. The chief minister joined one. In Delhi, traders in Chandni Chowk shut their markets in protest.
Community rallies, too.
Yes. Across India, in places like Lucknow, even Srinagar, people coming together, showing solidarity, refusing to be completely broken by terror. It's small comfort, perhaps, but important.
So, circling back to India's official stance, it was consistently about zero tolerance for terrorism.
Yes, and a commitment to accountability. That message was hammered home repeatedly, both domestically and internationally.
Ambassador Patel at the UN really emphasized India's long struggle with this, didn't she?
She did. She pointed out that the 26 civilian deaths were the highest toll from a single attack since Mumbai in '08, framing it as part of a long pattern of cross-border terrorism that India has faced. And she reiterated the call for global cooperation to bring perpetrators, and crucially their sponsors, to justice.
Which ties back to the Security Council statement.
Exactly. And India's actions, like suspending the Indus Waters Treaty, were clearly designed to underscore the seriousness of their position.
That treaty suspension really was a dramatic step, the potential fallout from that.
It's significant. Affecting water access can have huge economic and social impacts, particularly on agriculture in both countries. Union Minister C.R. Patil's comment about not letting even a drop flow really underlined how drastic a measure it was seen as within India.
To really grasp the significance, you have to see this Pahalgam attack in the wider context, right? The whole India-Pakistan conflict over Kashmir.
Precisely. This isn't happening in a vacuum. It's another tragic event layered onto decades of tension, conflict, and mistrust between two nuclear-armed neighbors.
Both claiming Kashmir, both controlling parts of it.
And the attack immediately brought back fears of escalation, especially remembering the 2019 Pulwama attack and the Indian airstrikes that followed.
Analysts were worried about pressure on Modi to retaliate again.
Yes, people like Arzan Terapur pointed that out, drawing parallels to the post-Pulwama Balakot crisis. It highlights just how volatile this situation became almost instantly.
So where does that leave things now, or rather in the immediate aftermath? Tense along the Lope.
Very tense. Reports of low-grade skirmishes, heightened military readiness on both sides. Diplomatically, India was shoring up support from allies, even reaching out to the Taliban in Afghanistan, who had condemned the attack.
And Pakistan.
Pakistan was pushing for that neutral investigation, maybe involving Russia or China. India dismissed that as basically a stalling tactic.
And the U.S. role in all this?
Trying to walk a fine line, it seems, urging a responsible solution, but also balancing its strategic ties with both India and Pakistan, especially with China's influence in the region as a backdrop. It's a complex diplomatic landscape.
So wrapping this up, the key takeaways seem to be this horrific attack in a beautiful place.
India's immediate and very strong response: security, diplomatic, rhetorical.
Widespread global condemnation, but also Pakistan's staunch denial and counteractions.
And underlying it all, the immense human tragedy, the individual lives lost and changed forever.
That UN moment, with Votan launching amidst Ambassador Patel's speech, it does highlight this ongoing effort to focus on victims and push for global accountability, doesn't it?
It does. And the Security Council's unity, even if rare, reinforces that global consensus against terrorism.
But it leaves us with some big, lingering questions looking forward.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Will this event change Pakistan's calculus regarding militant groups? How does it reshape the India-Pakistan dynamic long-term? What does it mean for regional stability?
And for Kashmir itself, for peace, for tourism, for the people living there.
These are tough questions with no easy answers. It really forces you to consider all the different angles, the history, the human impact.
Yeah. It's a stark reminder, really, of how interconnected these events are and the very real, very tragic consequences of conflict.
The Pahalgam attack is definitely a story that highlights the ongoing challenges in building a more peaceful world.